Might be used for someone in an organization who is about to get a bonus, and it looks as if everybody in this organization has that potential, but we're going to structure this in such a way that we might want to have more than a simple condition and have just two answers. Sometimes we need to put together more than one if, and let's explain what someone might want to do here. We want to provide a bonus for those people who have a job rating of 4 or 5. And if someone has a job rating of 3, we want to give them a bonus, but say a different bonus. And maybe even a bonus for those who have a job rating of 2. Now, if this were a strict mathematical relationship, we could write a formula that might involve an amount and we wouldn't even use the if function. But let's structure this in such a way, and I'm trying to, on the one hand, make it not sound too complex, but on the other hand, there are times when you need to use some logic that isn't exactly obvious. Let's start off with a simple idea that we simply want to say, if a job rating here is greater than or equal to 4, comma, the bonus amount will be 1,000. Even though you can't intervene and watch a function being calculated at the time it's actually being used, there is a way to describe this logic as if to say it is left to right. If a job rating is 4 or 5, 1,000 is the answer, and the logic doesn't go any further in the actual function. But what if the job rating is a 1, 2, or 3? You could say the logic is waiting here to be told what to do next, either to provide an answer or possibly to have another test. And this is what we call a nested if. If the job rating is not 4 or 5, then let's check to see if this job rating equals 3, comma. And if it is, let's give this person $500, comma. But if that's not true, and remember at the moment we're only looking at those who have a job rating of 3, 2, or 1. If it's a 3, these people will get $500, otherwise, nothing. So this is an if inside of an if. And you could say, if this is the original condition, here's the answer for when it's true, and here's the answer for when it's false. And the answer for when it's false is another condition, and there the answer is going to be 500 or 0. So that's an if inside of an if, a nested if. And we need a closing parenthesis for that if, as well as a closing parenthesis for the original if. We now have 3 possible answers, 1,500 or 0. And we want to copy that into a few cells. And again, I've made the column wider so we could see this displayed a bit more clearly here. We'll hit F2 to display that first one. And you can see what's happening here. An if inside of an if, we've got 3 possible answers, and you see that playing out in the result here. Now, a nested if, and this counts as one nested if. In all prior versions of Excel, these prior recent versions, the most nested ifs you could have would be 7. Now, some people's heads might be swimming already as they see one nested if. 7 sounds like quite a lot, but in Excel 2007, we have a maximum of 64 nested ifs. I can't imagine anybody even coming close to that. Since we're here, let's extend this even further. What if this company changes its mind again and decides to give a token bonus to those people who have a job rating of 2? Once again, if you think of the logic as left to right, we might intervene here and return to the portion of the logic that says if the B2 value equals 3, these people get $500, but if not, instead of 0, we'll insert another if here to check and see if this job rating equals 2, comma, and if it is, these people get $100, otherwise, comma, 0. So an if inside of an if inside of an if, we've got 4 possible answers. We need another concluding parentheses, and you'll note how they're color-coded as well. And when we complete the entries here, you'll see the different answers out there as before, and it's a longer if. An if inside of an if inside of an if. Now these are invariably, the more you have, a bit tricky, and certainly a strong suggestion here would be either do these in a form called top-down. In other words, this is taking care of the better job ratings first, then the middle one, and then the less impressive ones, let's say. Does make a difference which way we go. If we phrase this in a reverse order, we could start off by saying if B2 is equal to 1, then provide 0 and work the other way. But if you start mixing up the logic going in different directions, you're just asking for comprehension problems. I mean, sure enough, someone could come along here and say, well, if this is equal to 2, then we'll change that to be 100. And if it's not, then we'll check to see if this is, what are we going to check there? I mean, you can see how it's going to confuse your logic a bit. But sometimes these make sense, and I wouldn't necessarily say this is out of range of most people's capabilities. And you do develop a certain kind of pride as you work with some of these, but occasionally, unless some of these longer functions, you might come back 2 weeks later or 2 days later, then not know what you did, kind of think it out all over again. But we do see an example here of a nested if, and I think in this situation here it makes perfect sense, and there are times when you need to use this construction.